Hi guys, Dippy here with Wrestling in 60 Seconds. I'm here to talk about Lucha Underground. Now, Twitter is just like all over the place with the news of something happening with the Lucha Underground. And I came on here to kind of give you my perspective, what I think is happening. But first, let's go back to the history. You may or may not know that Mark Burnett, who does the Survivor franchise, is the one who created Lucha Underground. And Lucha Underground was filmed in Boyle Heights warehouse, and it was referred to as the Temple from 2014 to 2018. We didn't see it until like the beginning of the COVID era. I think by that time it was on Tubi, and we binge watched that whole 4 seasons within 3 days. That's how good it was. And you had Penta, you had Ray Phoenix, you had Ricochet, you had Thunder Rosa, you had Valkyria, Taya, and Johnny TV. You had Lee Morinari. You had Sammy Guevara. You had Rey Mysterio. You even had a young Dominic on the show. It was unbelievable. And to kind of give it a history of it, after watching it, like I think it was probably about 2019, AEW did their first fan fest in Jacksonville, and we went, and I had the opportunity, and I was so glad because Rick Knox was one of the referees at Lucha Underground, and oh, by the way, Brian Cage was there. But in any case, I had an opportunity to talk to Rick Knox, and I said to him, I did not understand how the wrestlers in Lucha Underground were able to wrestle in other places, still being under contract with Lucha Underground. And he said something that just like, all right, because a lot of people thought Lucha Underground was a wrestling promotion. And that's what he said. He said, people think it's a wrestling promotion. It's not a wrestling promotion. It's a story, and the wrestlers are actors, and they're telling a story about a wrestling company. And I had to stop what I was doing, and I looked at him. I said, can you repeat that one more time? Because I want to make sure that I understood you. And he repeated it. And I said, so it was never a wrestling company? He said, no, it was never a wrestling company. And I asked him, I said, how did they treat you? How did they treat, you as actors? And he was like, oh, we were treated so good during Lucha Underground. We got paid, we were all very happy. And I'm like, oh, okay, so they were very good to you guys. And he said, yes. And I said, I still don't understand. So they were actors playing a role in a TV show. And he says, exactly. So my next question to him was, did these contracts have expiration dates? And he said, not to his knowledge. Now, let's flip the switch, right? We first saw the first sign of any type of posting on Lucha Underground since 2019. Now, here's my thoughts, and I'm going to relate it to something that I just found out about 8 to 10 months ago, thanks to a couple of subscribers who reached out to me and said to me, hey, is there any possible way that you can stream Evolve on your channel. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure WWE has copyright laws, you know. And so I thought about that, and I wrote back and I said, well, you know, you can see Evolve on Tubi. And they wrote back to me and they said, Canada's Tubi does not carry Evolve. And I thought, well, that's crazy. So the next time I go to the Performance Center, I sit down with someone that I know that would have knowledge of this. And I said, hey, I don't understand. I had some subscribers who mentioned to me that they would like for me to stream Evolve to them because they don't get it. He was like, absolutely not. You are going to get in so much trouble there and copyright. I'm like, no. I get that. I said, but why isn't Tubi showing Evolve in Canada? Because, like, to me, it seems like Canadians could travel to Orlando. They could do it as a vacation, a Christmas time. Maybe they want to come down to watch a live event of Evolve. And he was like, well, they didn't buy the rights in Canada to Evolve. And I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? He said, I don't know, but, you know, they didn't buy the rights. So that kind of makes me wonder if this is what's going on with Lucha Underground. Because the El Rey Network, when it was showing Lucha Underground, the president of that TV network was crazy about wrestling. And that's why the show went so well over. All right? And I'm talking in Mexico and not in the States. All right? And then he lost his position. And the person who took over his position hated wrestling. And he pulled it. Now, my thoughts are, what if, because it's my understanding that TKO owns the rights to Lucha Underground, but maybe they only own Lucha Underground rights in the United States and not Mexico. And maybe the El Rey Network owns the rights to it in Mexico. And if that was the case, and if that is the case, and I have no expertise in Mexican business law. I'm not an attorney, but it would make sense to me that if the El Rey Network owned the rights to Lucha Underground in Mexico, then they could produce shows in Mexico and bring the show back. Now, my question is if that's the case, would the original contracts that Mark Burnett wrote for all the actors that they had, most of them are in AEW, still be allowed to, would they still be required to work there? I don't know. Probably not, because it's a different situation. It's not in the U.S. I don't know. There's lots of questions, but on a note, there's only been some recent changes in the trademark, and that's what I'm wondering, is if the El Rey Network didn't buy the rights in Mexico to Lucha Underground, and what are they going to do with it? Are they going to bring it back in the original form? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I want to thank you for watching, subscribing, and until the next time, bye for now.